Alright, this is part 3 of the video of me doing the chapter 13 quizzes. We're starting, this is the quizzes from 13.9 and 13.10. So we'll start with number 1, which says find the values of each function. So y equals 1/2 x minus 5. This time we're still using -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, except this time we have different styles of equations here. So we'll start by plugging in -2, which we get -1 minus 5 is -6. This time we'll plug in -1. So we get -1/2 minus 5 is -5.5. This one we have 1/2 times 0 minus 5, which is 0 minus 5, which is -5. And now we have 1/2 times 1 minus 5 equals 1/2 minus 5, which is -4.5. As you can see, the pattern, whoops, I almost messed up back here, that's a -6. As you can see, the pattern is we're getting larger by 1/2 each time, which is what the slope is. And the last one, we have a 2, so we're going to be 1 minus 5, which is -4. Alright, moving on to number 2. We have y equals x squared plus 1. In this case, all negative values, when you square them, two negatives make a positive, so we have 4 plus 1, which is 5. And then when you plug in -1, you get -1 times -1, which is 1. So now we have 2. And when you plug in 0, you get 0. I don't know why I put equals 1 equals 2. That doesn't make any sense. So let's go back. So 0 squared plus 1 equals 0 plus 1 equals 1. That makes more sense. And let's plug in a 1 now. So 1 squared plus 1 equals 1 plus 1, which is 2. So now we're going back up. So we went 5, 2, 1, 2. So we imagine the next one should be a 5. So then we go 4 plus 1 is 5. Notice these are not the same as the previous ones, which were linear, because there's a squared thing, so there's not going to be a common difference every time. So don't expect that, but we do expect it to look the same on both sides of the vertex, which in this case is 0, so it goes 2, 5, 2, 5. Alright, number 3, we have y equals x minus 2 squared. In this case, we have -2 minus 2 squared. So that's going to be -4 squared, which is 16. Not to be confused with -4 squared, which would be -16. Notice the difference here. When we plug in -1, we get -3. Square that, you get 9. When you plug in 0, you get -2 squared, which is 4. When you plug in 1, you get -1 squared, which is 1. And when you plug in 2, you get 0 squared, which is 0. Notice it didn't go back up. That's because since there's parentheses here, it's sliding the vertex over, so the vertex is not at 0 like it was on the previous. Let's go on to number 4. Now we have an absolute value. Y equals absolute value of x minus 3. So since the absolute value is only surrounding the x, basically everything we plug in ends up being positive. So -2 minus 3 becomes 2 minus 3, which is -1. -1, absolute value minus 3 is 1 minus 3, which becomes -2. when we plug in a 0 here, we get 0 minus 3, which is negative 3. And when we plug a 1 in, the same thing is going to happen that happened before. We're still going to get 1 minus 3, so we have a negative 2. And finally, when we plug in a 2, we're going to get 2 minus 3 and get a negative 1. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and then back. Okay, so if we were to plug in a negative 3, we would get 0. If we were to plug in 3, we would get 0. Okay, moving along. Now we're essentially doing the same thing with different style notation. So here we have function notation. Means really the same thing. So we're going to do f of negative 3, f of 0, f of 6. So here we need to plug in negative 3. X is already negative, so I'm going to show it like this because that's really going to be 3 instead of negative. So it's going to be positive 3 plus 7 because this could mean opposite, right? So the opposite of negative 3, positive 3. Plugging in a 0, that's a lot simpler. We get negative 0 plus 7, which is 7. I'll just move that over here so it's all on the same line. And finally, negative 6 plus 7 is going to equal 1. For number 6, we have f of x equals 5x minus 6. So now we're going to plug in the same stuff. So we're going to go f of negative 3, f of 0, f of 6 again. So 5 times negative 3 minus 6 is negative 15 minus 6, which is negative 21. 5 times 0 minus 6 is 0 minus 6, which is negative 6. And 5 times 6 minus 6 is 30 minus 6, which is 24. All right, number 7. We have f of x equals absolute value of x minus 1. Now this whole thing is in the absolute value, so we're going to have to do all of that first before we make it positive. Alright, so we're going to plug in negative 3, and we get absolute value negative 4, which then becomes 4 at the end. Here we have 0 minus 1, which is absolute value of negative 1, which is 1. And here we have absolute value of 6 minus 1, which is absolute value of 5, which is 5. Let me double check that. So negative 3, negative 4. Yep, that looks good. All right, number 8. We have f of x equals 1/3 x squared. So again, we're doing f of negative 3, f of 0, and f of 6. And so we have 1/3 times negative 3 squared, which is 1/3 times 9, which is 3. And then we have 0. This is just 0 because 0 times 1/3 is 0. And then this one we have 1/3 times 6 squared. So we have 1/3 times 36, which equals 12. All right, number 9, we're going back to graphing. So we have y equals 2x minus 3. This is a pretty easy one. We've done this a million times. It's just slope-intercept. So we have a negative 3 intercept. Slope is positive 2. We're going up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Connecting the dots. That's it. Okay, so let's work on the next one. Number 10 is a little more exciting. We have y equals x squared plus 1. This, as you should be ready for, is going to be a curve. So we're not using slope-intercept form because there is not one of those for a curve. So we're going to make an xy chart. I told you that you should be using -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. That's going to change next year, but for now this will work. -2 squared is 4, plus 1 is 5. -1 squared is 1, plus 1 is 2. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 squared plus 1 is 2. 2 squared plus 1 is 5. I'm just going to plot these. -2, 5. -1, 2. 0, 1. Got the mirror image over here. And I'm going to give you a bonus graph after this because I don't think we've done any. I'm going to give you a graph of an absolute value function. So let's just do that here. Bonus. Let's try something like y equals absolute value of x plus 2. Let's get the graph out here. Alright, so we can make an XY chart for this. Okay, so if we go with our standard, which don't always work to show us the V, but you should be aware this is going to look like a V. So if you don't get to the V part, you got to keep choosing numbers like -3 or 3 or -4 or 4. So -2 absolute value becomes 2. So 2 plus 2 is 4. 1 plus 2 is 3. 0 plus 2, 1 plus 2. So it looks like we are going to see the V here. So -2, 4. -1, 3. 0, 2. 1, 3. It's not here. It's back up here because we have the V. It's not linear. It's a V. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.